Chief, thanks for being with us today.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for asking me.
Oh, I love having you. Tell us where you came from.
Yeah, originally from Iowa, northwest corner of Iowa, Storm Lake, a town of about this size, about 10,000. Grew up there, went to college in Sioux City, Iowa, went to Morningside College. I played baseball there, was Division II at the time.
Division II, okay.
I graduated with a criminal justice degree. I decided about midway through my college years that I wanted to get into law enforcement. It really intrigued me. So after college, I applied to a lot of larger agencies. I applied in the Denver, Colorado area. I applied in Indianapolis, Indiana. I applied in Madison. And I decided at that point that whichever agency gave me the job first, the offer, I was going to go there, and it happened to be Madison. So I started my career with Dane County, with the sheriff's office there. Packed up my Chevy Beretta and moved to Madison.
Why a big city?
I wanted the variety. I really wanted to get into some special things, special teams, that type of thing. So I wanted to have that opportunity as I continued my law enforcement career. So I thought a big agency was kind of the way I wanted to go.
Way to do it.
Yep.
And working in Dane County, how was that?
Working in Dane.
Your first year, do you recall back?
I recall that. Coming from small town Iowa to Madison, Wisconsin was a bit of a culture shock for me. I started my career with Dane County in the jail as a deputy there. Worked about 3.5 years there.
Right in the jail?
In the jail. Okay. I was there when the public safety building first started. Okay. So I started in '94. And just shortly after that, they had built that facility. And I was one of the first deputies that actually was assigned to the pod system that was going to be in the cell, so to speak, with all the inmates. So that was a big change for everyone involved.
And that's one big cell?
One big cell. Yep, it's an open, sleeping, dining area with tables and stuff like that in there. So nobody at that point, at least in this area, had deputies in the cell with the inmates.
Yeah. Why did they come up with that idea?
I believe it has to do with a population to try and control the overcrowding issues there. It was more to do with rehabilitation of the inmates as well, learning how to interact with them. As a deputy, you really have to have some sharp communication skills to get these folks to do what you're asking them to do and to follow the rules that they're not used to doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, would you have a range of from like DWIs to people arrested for a violent crime in that same room?
It was mostly non-violent people that were allowed. Yep.
The violent people were put in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you left there.
I left there. I decided I didn't want to be in jail, working in jail any longer.
No one wants to be in jail, Chief.
Nobody does. You're right. I actually took a position with the Janesville Police Department.
Okay.
And moved down to Janesville. Did quite a bit with them. I was on their first SWAT team that they had there. Was on their special operations, which is now their street crimes unit. Deals a lot with drugs and stuff like that. I was a follow-up officer that did kind of in-between investigations between the patrol and the detective division there too. So I got to do quite a few things. I was on their police mountain biking teams, and I applied for the SWAT team position when they were organizing that. And you had to do like a little tryout and testing for that to get it selected for that. And then there was monthly training for the SWAT team. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
So then what happened there next?
So with the Janesville Police Department, I said I played baseball in college. I continued to play baseball, home talent league baseball. Home talent started out as a regular, like out of college type of league, some that were still in college. And it developed into a wooden bat league, which is the home talent baseball league is the biggest, one of the biggest in Wisconsin and around the area. So I played for Stoughton. Okay. Started that when I was with Dane County and continued when I was at Janesville.
Okay.
I had some shoulder issues, and it finally progressed to where I went in and the doctor kept saying it was tendonitis. Turned out to be a little bit more. I went in to have it cleaned up a little bit, just arthroscopic surgery done. I distinctly remember waking up and my wife was there and she said, "Honey, I have bad news." I said, "Okay." She said, your minor surgery turned into a major surgery. They had to actually reattach a ligament that had been detached in there. So it was like, I think they call it a slap lesion injury. So she said, that's not the worst of it. They got that done, but the doctor said you'll probably never regain full range of motion in your arm. So I thought to myself, that means I can't be a police officer anymore.
You thought that
What am I-
immediately,
immediately.
before baseball.
Yeah.
And you have a great love of baseball. Like
Love baseball, yeah.
Well, who doesn't?
Yeah, right. So what I did was I actually got out of law enforcement. I got into fraud investigations with an insurance company. Kemper Insurance was the name. Continued to rehab my shoulder, but that actually moved us out to the Washington, D.C. area. Took a position out there with them as a fraud investigator. We were out there, if you recall, the D.C. Snipers. As much as I had done in law enforcement, I was never more concerned for my safety until I moved out there and during that time, because you literally felt like you were being hunted. So during that time, I continued to rehab the shoulder, but I tell people when they ask, how was it out there? And I said, the DC area is a great place to visit. There is lots to see out there and lots to do. Living out there is a different story. The only thing on the news is weather, traffic, and homicides. You can't get anywhere at any time of day. So after about a year, my wife decided, you know what, I've had enough. Let's move back.
Okay.
So I moved back. My shoulder wasn't there yet. I got into some sales. I did some financial advising with American Express at the time. It's now Ameriprise, I believe they call it now. Then I got into banking. I was a branch manager for Associated Bank, did some personal banking, and I never liked the sales aspect of things. Even though you're trying to do what's best for people as far as financial concerns go, they were always skeptical of what you were doing. So it was tough. Always questioning. It was very tough. The pressure of sales was a little much. And I really discovered my passion was law enforcement. I really loved it. Really missed it. It was amazing how many people that I met say, "You look like a cop." And I said, "Well, I was."
So when you left though, you left on your own volition. You didn't.
Yeah.
You weren't waiting for someone to tell you couldn't be a cop. You just thought, this is it. If I'm in a situation where I need to.
Well, I had 2 kids at the time. I need to figure out how to support my family.
Right.
So, and that was really what led me to, well, I can still kind of, at that time, do something related to law enforcement, and that was the special investigations. But even that at the time was basically training sales claims reps on what to look for fraudulent claims and things like that. So I was kind of behind the desk, and I thought, this is more of a retirement job, not something I really want to do right now.
So you left, and I'm assuming when you left, your wife was at ease a little bit, that you got out of law enforcement.
She
However,
was, yes.
You wanted to go back.
Yep.
After being, now how long were you absent?
6 years.
6 years, okay. So, and you learned a whole other life.
Absolutely.
Created a whole other life, and now you wanted to go back, and you had to tell her that.
I did.
How was that? Now you're older, you're coming back in law enforcement.
Yep.
And that challenge to do your passion and still.
Yeah. She understood. I mean, we had various conversations
Sure.
throughout this 6-year period, and she was actually very supportive. Matter of fact, she was the one that found the position at Whitewater as a detective. So she was actually out there looking for me.
She was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very proactive
Very,
about it.
yeah.
Yeah. Find the right spot.
Absolutely.
Not in the middle of New York
I
City.
didn't want to start all over again if
Yeah.
I didn't have to.
Sure.
And then she found the position, the Whitewater Police Department was looking for a detective outside the agency, simply because they were a young department at the time, didn't have anyone that they thought was, ready for that position yet. So.
And you had basically, you had so many different positions.
Yeah.
And after you left that 6 years, what in those different careers helped you be a better police officer?
Well, it's not only communication with people, but it's understanding life outside of law enforcement. What other people do for a living, how they communicate with you. There's different perspectives. When you're in law enforcement at some point, a lot of officers have a hard time with being cynical. They don't believe what people are telling them. They always think people are lying to them because that's normally what they deal with.
Trust but verify, right?
Absolutely. That's a great point. Being outside of law enforcement, I got to see the other end. Most people really like law enforcement officers. They appreciate the job that we do. They're the silent majority, as I call it.
You don't hear them.
Yeah, you really don't.
There's no reason to hear them.
Right.
Everything's going smooth.
Absolutely.
I'm driving the speed limit.
Yep.
No one's behind me.
Absolutely. So I really got to see that end and really got a whole new appreciation for law enforcement and what we do. Yeah.
And you did that as an older
Yep.
older person rather than, because you went from college and you went right into law enforcement. So that's a very interesting perspective, and
Yeah.
bringing it back. So then you went to Whitewater.
Yep.
You're a detective. You went right in.
Yeah, I had to go
being a
back to the
detective.
academy again for the second time because I've been out of law enforcement for more than 3 years. So that was
A
an interesting-
2-year academy.
Well, when you're outside, when you're not in law enforcement for 3 years, you have to go back and recertify. So since I've been gone for 6 years, I had to actually go back through the academy again and certify as a law enforcement officer.
Can you work at the time? Can you go back to the academy and work at the same time?
You can. You have about a year leeway to
Okay.
do it, but what they sent me through right away. Right.
And did things change from the academy from when you
know,
started to now?
Not a whole lot, quite honestly. I mean, some of the material had changed, and some of the tactics and stuff that they use had changed a little bit, but really it remained the same.
Has law enforcement changed in term when you started till today, as we speak today?
I don't know that
And the way
law
we police.
I don't know that law enforcement has changed, but people's perspective of law enforcement has changed. They don't necessarily take our word for it anymore. They really, you say trust but verify. I don't even know if they go that point. It's because of some of the things that have happened, especially things that negative things that have happened. They really don't. And so
The visuals that we're seeing now on the internet
Absolutely.
and TV. How do departments feel about that across the country? I'm sure as a chief you meet with other chiefs. And what's the feeling on that visual? Because we are seeing a snapshot of it on like I said, the internet and TV.
Yeah, and that's one thing that's hard. You ask how the chiefs take it. It seems like no matter what we do for the community, no matter how many great community events that we're involved with, the things that we promote, one bad thing has to happen, and it doesn't even have to be in your area. One bad thing has to happen. It seems like it wipes all that stuff away, all the good that you do. So that's tough. And another thing that it affects is recruiting. What kind of people are we going to get that want to come into this profession knowing the negative publicity that the police officers get nowadays? So I've actually seen the recruitment numbers go down when I'm trying to run application processes, in Whitewater now here. We're not getting as many qualified applicants, so that's putting a strain on us.
Wow, and
Yeah.
that's probably indicative of throughout the country.
Absolutely.
What do you think some things are that departments can do?
The only thing that I've found that so far that's been effective is really going out to the colleges. They have a lot of career days and stuff like that, really getting out to those and really educating the students on what it is we do. Internship programs are really good. Allows people to come into your agency, while they're earning their credits and really see how a police department operates and what they do. Just really an inside look at the department really helps.
Chief, what's the greatest part of being a chief now?
I think the greatest part for me thus far, obviously I've only been doing it for about 45 days, but it's my vision that I'd like to see the police department go forward in. Being able to help the young officers achieve their goals, and not just young, I should say all the officers achieve their goals, get them to be proud of what they're doing. We've had a few challenges at the Oregon Police Department in the past couple years. One of my goals is to basically restore a sense of pride here. That's being able to be a part of that is very exciting for me, and to be able to make sure that we're doing things the right way. It's going to be a long process, but I'm excited about that.
When I was out on rides, and we pulled over some people because they were breaking the law. We had one speeder. And for the first time, I was afraid when the officer went up to the vehicle. And when I leave the house in the morning and go to work, I'm not putting on a bulletproof vest. I'm not putting on a badge, a gun, and going out into the world.
Yeah.
And my wife expects me to come home alive. I don't think that's true for an officer every day. And they have to go through a whole regiment of emotions. Do we do anything to help our officers? They're facing what could be a life and death situation. They are the first responders to it.
And I think a lot of misperception out there is, when they see officers at a big scene, for example, a crime scene, maybe a death scene or something like that, and they see officers joking or laughing, the misperception there is, how could they be doing that? Well, that's part of their coping mechanism as well. So one of the first things they do is they are able to talk to each other, to be able to cope with some of these big crimes, tragic scenes. The next thing that we do is we really provide them with training on how to deal with those types of things. We get them to trainings that deal with critical incidents, how to do that. I just met with one of the police commission members here who is a pastor, and we're talking about possibly bringing in a chaplaincy program here. So we're able to have someone come in and do like a big stress debriefing and have someone to really talk about our feelings, because I don't know that we really do that as a profession as a whole.
I don't think most men
Right.
do that anyway.
That's very true, and especially in this position and profession, when you have A-type personalities, you're kind of a big tough guy or gal, and you don't want to show your emotions. Well, that's an important part of healing. So those are the things that we want to do here to be able to get them to over those things.
So what's going to happen in terms? We're seeing a lot of departments camera up now
Yeah.
and get videos.
Yeah.
Are we going to do that?
We are. It was one of the instrumental questions in my hiring process was what I thought about body cameras, on-officer cameras. I was part of a program in Whitewater where we brought on-officer cameras to the Whitewater Police Department. I anticipate we're doing that here. It's already in the budget for 2016, so pending board approval.
Ready to go.
Pending board approval, we will have it ready next year. No.
Is there pushback in other departments on having them? And if the pushback is there, what is it typically?
Well, there is. I mean, not normally. Like I just heard the ad hoc committee for the Madison Police Department decided they didn't want to go that route. I'm not sure what that means for the Madison Police Department. They're one of the few that I've ever actually heard that from. Most agencies want to go to these cameras, and it's really for officer protection. We always see in the media these little clips of an officer, using force on someone, and it's like the last 30 seconds of the whole exchange. I found, especially when we started it with the Whitewater Police Department, that the officers were a little skeptical at first. They didn't want Big Brother to be watching and criticizing everything they do. Not that they were doing anything wrong, but they didn't want that
when they're
criticism.
eating lunch.
Yeah, exactly.
Is the camera running all the time?
It's in what's called a buffer mode. So what that means is it's always recording, but it's only recording, it only goes back, like when you turn it on, there's a button that turns it on, and it goes back 30 seconds, and it records the video only. There's no audio. So
There's no audio.
There's no audio. So once you hit that button, it goes back 30 seconds. Like if I see someone running a stoplight, for example, like, I need to capture that, I'll turn it on. It'll go back 30 seconds, so I can actually see that video, but there's no audio to it. And then as soon as you turn it on, it gets video and audio.
Oh, it does. Okay.
yeah.
So the officer can turn it on and off and control it
Yes.
at any moment.
And that's the controversy. The
Because they
officer
can
turn
control
turn it off. So really how you get around that and make it so that it's a little more transparent for everyone is you establish a good policy on when it can and can't be turned on. And really what we established in Whitewater was a policy where any and all citizen contacts, you turn it on. That way there's no discrepancy. Now, if you want to turn it off, if you need to talk to an officer about the charges that you may think or what's going on, you can do it at that time. You can turn it back on right away. And those things are, those hold up in court. They say you turn it off. Well, why'd you turn it off? What'd you talk about? And they were fine with that.
And it's going to be public.
It's all open records.
Open records.
Yeah. One of the things that drew me to this department, actually I had heard about what was going on. I knew that they would be looking for a chief. I knew that I was about that at that point in my career that I wanted to do that.
Let me interrupt you, Chief.
Yeah.
So before we were looking for a chief,
Yes.
you knew what was going on here,
Yes.
and you knew that we were going to be looking for a
Absolutely.
chief here.
Yeah.
So you were interested.
So I was interested only because I knew about the community. I started my career obviously with Dane County.
Played in Stoughton.
Played in Stoughton. I knew about the community.
Okay.
I looked into the community. I checked with the schools as well. I have 3 children.
Yep.
I've got a high schooler, a middle schooler, and a grade schooler. So schools were very important to me. Like I said, I grew up in a small town. I love small towns. And the atmosphere here was good. So I actually inquired about it first. I wanted to know, okay, what kind of support am I going to get from the community if I come in here and do this job because of what has gone on? I wanted to know, is the village board going to be supportive of any of the changes that I think that may need to be made, and how will working with them be? I spoke with Dale Burke, who was the interim chief at the time, and he assured me that would be no issues whatsoever. The board has been and continues to be very supportive of the police department. The community as well, very supportive. So I knew that that was the type of environment that I wanted to come in and I needed to have if I was going to be able to make any changes here.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
otherwise it'd be hard.
It would be
You'd
very
climbing
hard.
a mountain.
And I had a great job in Whitewater, and I wasn't going to leave it to basically, you know, as I said, set myself up for failure. I didn't want to have that. So,
Okay.
yeah.
You're wearing a pink shirt.
I am.
I must ask.
Yeah. There's not many people out there that haven't been affected by some type of cancer, one form or another. My family has. My wife was diagnosed with breast cancer last February. So I thought it was important to raise awareness in the community. I've authorized pink shirts to be worn, ribbons on the squad cars. We're going to try and put together a fundraiser, T-shirts, try to sell those just to, you know, the money we raise isn't going to help solve and cure cancer, but it's going to help.
Brings
And
awareness to it.
It definitely brings awareness. I'm going to try and partner with the schools so we can have some pink out events,
right,
you know,
great.
during basketball season, that type of thing. I knew I don't know if you're aware of Justice for a Cure, what that is all. The founder of Justice for a Cure, and it's really kind of a breast cancer awareness. They work with Susan G. Komen very heavily.
Okay.
She was a deputy sheriff at Dane County, and that's how I knew her first, but she's retired now, and she runs this Justice for a Cure. I had her come down, and one of her big visions is we have this big sledding hill out by 14. And so
Right.
she said, I come by your community all the time. I said, she goes, how great would it be to form a human pink ribbon on the side of this hill and take a picture of that and put that out there to spread awareness?
Chief, thanks for being with us. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
It was my pleasure.
And a pleasure hearing your story and your journey and help our community. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Frank.